Frankie, I thought we were going to be talking about the Crystal Palace game, but there's a lot of stories come out in the last 24 hours. It's almost hard to keep up with a whole host of manager names being linked to what isn't a vacancy yet at West Ham. Could be a vacancy, depending on how tomorrow goes. And then we've had a story that Mark Noble and Karren Brady have been trying to schmooze a potential investor. They've been showing someone around Russ Green who may be interested in purchasing the gold shares. Which one would you like to tackle first, the manager or the investor?
Let's go with a juicy one, Joe. Let's go with the investor. It's what we all want at the moment. So,
well, that's the story, really, that they've been showing someone around that who potentially may be interested in purchasing the gold shares. Do you believe the story, and what do you make of the story?
I think it's hard not to believe. I mean, the timing of it's a bit convenient.
Yeah, that's what puts me off, if I'm honest with you.
Yeah, it's look, Joe, we've been here before many times, and I've said it. They are just like politicians. They're very good at finding ways to pacify the fan base, to cool the fire down a little bit, to just take the heat off them. They're very good at doing it. They've played so many games in the past when this momentum builds and we get to the point where we have them on the ropes. That's how I normally describe it. And I think they're right backed up against the wall, and then somehow they manage to make it all go away. So again, that's kind of what I said when this was all starting to build again, is we can't allow that to happen. We've got to keep going forward. Like I said, I do feel like we need a clear mission on what it is that we do want, following either a step down or a step aside, or however you want to call it. So it is convenient. Is it stories that chills things out? Maybe it's also something that somebody else, an investor, comes in and they feel like that will just make us all feel a little bit better. But I don't think it would make me feel better, Gio, because we've had plenty of investors. We've got investors. I think when Kretinsky come in, I think we all felt that he would be a big character and would start having a bit of a say. I don't see too much evidence of him flexing his power. So on that basis, you know, they like to have control. That's one thing that's very clear. And one reason why I'm not sure about the objective being them stepping aside. It'd be really easy, Gio, for them to turn around and go, we've got new investor. As part of that new investor, they've recommended this person steps in as whatever role you want to give them. Yet they're still pulling all the strings, and they're the ultimate decision makers. They do it with managers, they do it with transfers, they do it with every other aspect. So again, I'm not sure our end goal at the moment, which is them stepping aside. Okay, we've got an investor. It's someone that they know. It's someone that they know they can control. They bring them in and nothing really changes. So that's my sort of honest a part of it. But maybe I should be a little bit more, actually, this is a route forward.
Well, it's hard to get too optimistic or excited about this rumor for me. I think the timing is very convenient. I remember there was rumors at the start of summer when it was sort of seeing ticket renewal time about, some American billionaire is looking at potentially purchasing West Ham, and then certain people went digging and trying to, well, they just started making up names. When I say making up names, they didn't make them up. They looked at like really rich people that maybe sold a company and went, they've got billions. Maybe they'd want to do it, or someone that had connections to a sports franchise in America, but not in football. And it's like, maybe this guy will do it. And it just started linking names. And I didn't even do a video about it. I couldn't be asked. I just didn't believe any of it for a second. And I don't really believe this one either. I just struggle. I just struggle to believe it, because just like you said, like what they're going to do. I mean, the gold shares are a minority share. So even if you were to pick up them, and then what? The only possible scenario here is if we look at Daniel Kretinsky's deal, he's got a put and call option in that, which he hasn't activated, nor has David Sullivan, which shows Kretinsky's lack of desire to take control of the club, and Sullivan's lack of desire to sell his shares, because he could sell them to Kretinsky for an already agreed price, and he's chosen not to do that. Now, there is an an expiry date on that. Don't know when that is. It could have passed. It could be in future. I don't know. But there's certainly that option was there and included in the deal. So there's no desire for either of them to sort of do anything. So the one potential, if we get a new investor, is that maybe he would or she would also have that clause in there, which would allow them to purchase the shares of David Sullivan and Daniel Kaczynski and then take over the entire club. But I just find it a difficult one to get behind. Also, I think I just look at it. I think, why would you invest in West Ham right now? Why would you? I know the gold shares are up for sale, so they are available. But given that our Premier League status is the only thing going for us from a wealth point of view, that is questionable this season. We've taken out payday loans, the training ground's mortgaged to the hilt. So it's sort of like there's not really much going for West Ham in that regards right now. So I don't know. I just feel like maybe it's because I'm too emotionally connected. I feel like it's a bad time to invest in West Ham right now. But if someone far more savvy or intelligent me might think that's it's a good time to invest in West Ham because of those reasons, and it gives us an opportunity. We'll wait and see. I hope it's true, and I think because of I'm almost reluctant to believe it because it's potential good news, if that makes sense. But I just find the timing of it all way too convenient, Frankie. I'm just, I'm not having it. But I mean, they'll sell at some point, just 2 days before a protest. Don't know, just a bit suspicious. Anyway, Frankie, on to the managers then. Slaven Bilic is the I say the latest name, the biggest name. There's a lot of latest names kicking around at the minute, but he's the one that feels like there's a lot of weight around in terms of the most likely to replace Graham Potter. Are you believing this rumor?
No. No. There comes a point, Joe, when you just you see you've just had too many experiences of their games that they play, and it's like the boy who cried wolf. You just, in the end, you just go, I'm not having it no more. You ain't gonna mug me off again. Like, it's just not gonna happen. So again, it's just one of them. It seems like a very easy, cheap, fast way of trying to pacify fans. He's a West Ham boy. Social media has been talking about Bilic a little bit recently. It's funny how a lot of comments have been about how Bilic was probably one of the better managers since Harry Redknapp, and now all of a sudden they're throwing that name out there. I think they watch these sort of channels more than you maybe realise. I'm not saying David Sullivan watches them, but I'm sure there's somebody who does and reports back to them and sort of gives them a little bit of feedback of what's going on. So I think it would be a disaster anyway. I'm not so sure he was a great manager. I think the timing was perfect. It was just a special season, that last season at Upton Park. I think it didn't really matter who was going to be in charge. Yes, it made sense that it was a West Ham man, and I do agree with some of the comments we said in the last video that I'm not sure how much of a West Ham man he was, but he certainly got West Ham better than most. And as you know, I used to do the Players Awards every single season, and when he was around, and this is the stark contrast in difference, that man knew most people's names. And with the Players Awards, when Bilic was in charge, players went and sat on the tables with the fans. So a different player would sit on each table. Everyone moved around, everyone integrated, everyone spoke to the players. It was, up close and personal, and it was a fantastic experience. As soon as Moyes come in, there was a complete and utter divide. You couldn't even have a conversation with a player. You couldn't stand in the same area as a player. They were sectioned off. We were behind, and you had no engagement with the players whatsoever. They did the player awards, and then they were shipped off out of a side door, and you couldn't even really get any autographs, or you couldn't get anything. It was just, they did have a little room where you could take one item and put it down, and they'd sign it. But that was as up close and personal as it got. So there's no question that Bilic was a better manager, actually cared about people, cared about families, cared about youth players, cared about every single person at the football club, which I haven't seen that since. So that was great. But in terms of on the pitch, one amazing season. After that, it was all a bit too much for him. He struggled with the pressure when we were in a good place. We're not in a good place. I think there's more pressure now than ever. And I just don't see how he comes in and copes with that. So, yeah, if it is true, it ain't for me anyway. But again, I don't believe it too much.
Yeah, I actually do believe it. And I'll tell you why. If you look at his footballing CV, if you look at him as a manager, if you look at the circumstances, but you ignore, and it's difficult, but if you ignore that West Ham attachment, right, if you ignore the fact that he's been a West Ham manager before, I think it ticks all the boxes. Obviously, you've got to swap West Ham with a other Premier League club. Let's just say he was the Everton manager, right? Former Everton player went back there and done what he did at Everton. Instead of West Ham, he went to Everton and did what he did. You're looking at his CV now, and he's free, he's available, he's got the Premier League experience. Tick, tick, tick. I think he ticks all the boxes as to what we'd be looking for in a manager if we were to sack Graham Potter. And then you add in the West Ham aspect of it, which is that emotional attachment and to some extent a positive PR, but actually I actually think it's quite funny. I think it's almost like quite symbolizes the board a little bit, because I think this leak's gone out there. It's either one of two things. There's one of three. One, it's just genuine that they actually think Bilic is the right man to replace Graham Potter, and that's who they're going to go get. So that's reason number one. And then the next two are sort of fake stories. But why is that a fake story? Reason number two is to almost make West Ham fans think, hey, is this the alternative? Him or Dyche? I'll stick with Graham Potter, thank you. And almost like the Potter's stock rises a little bit because of the alternative. It worked on me, right? When Moyes was here, and then that season we were struggling, and the alternative was Rafa. I thought, whoa, I'll stick with Moyes, thank you very much. It worked on me. Deliver the prospect of a manager you think may be poorer than one in charge. Suddenly you might think, the guy I've got is all right. But I do strongly think there was a significant difference between David Moyes and Graham Potter. It was easier to say, I'll stick with what I've got when Moyes was doing what he did compared to what Graham Potter's doing. And then the last one is, I think the board have put the name out there potentially thinking, this will keep everyone happy. They'll all be positive. They all love Bilic. And we do all love Bilic. A lot of West Ham fans do love Bilic. I think a lot of West Ham fans think what you've just said, which is I love Slav. I'm not really sure he's the right manager. Love Slav, don't really want him back. And that almost symbolizes the club a little bit. It's like they almost feel like, hey, here's a guy that everyone loves. Yeah, we do. But it doesn't mean we want him back. Listen, I think a lot of West Ham fans love Michail Antonio. But I don't think any West Ham fan wants to see Michail Antonio running around up front for us later on this season, right? We love the guy, but it's done. And that's where I am with Bilic. I absolutely love Bilic, one of my favourite ever West Ham managers. Almost as a fan, I wanted to run through a brick wall for him, and I rooted for him more than any other manager to succeed, probably. I thought, come on, please, you just be a success. Please be a success. Because if he was as good as, say, Eddie Howe, it would have been dreamland for West Ham. We've got a guy that just gets it. He's embedded in the West Ham fan base, but also he's bloody good tactically as well. And I'm just not sure that part was there. I don't think he was good tactically. I think he got found out pretty quickly. And almost because of how much he loved West Ham, he used to look beaten up. Yeah, he would be getting beat 2-3-0, and he looked distraught on the touchline. You could tell he was hurting. So when I listened to Potter's press conferences after games, said, we're all hurting. And before the Palace game, he's saying, we all love the club. And I thought, well, you don't though, do you? And that's okay, right? I've never once expected you to support West Ham or start quoting things from the history of West Ham or anything like that. I've never expected that from you, right? So, we all love West Ham. Well, you don't. It's your job. That's all right, though. You don't have to love West Ham. I'd like to think that if you were here for 3 or 4 years, you'd fall in love with the club. But you've not even been here 12 months. I do not expect you to love this football club. And that's all right. It's your job. It's fine. But actually, Bilic did. And I think you could see it. When we got beat, he looked upset. He looked like he was going to cry. Some games he did cry. Some of them happy ones against Man United, but some of them looked like he was genuinely distraught. And I think the idea of Slaven Bilic is probably better than the reality of Slaven Bilic. And I would worry that if he came in, that we'd get relegated. Now, I've got a fear of relegation already. But part of my comfort about not getting relegated is that we were to sack Potter, the opportunity is there to go get a manager who would come in and keep us up comfortably. And I'm not sure Bilic would be that guy. I would still have fears of relegation. I think the morale will be good. I think he'd maybe look to get the best out of Jared Bowen, but we were shipping serious goals under Slav, like 4 or 5 a game. Right, it's even at Upton Park when we were good in that season. We were winning games 3-2. We were still shipping goals. So yeah, I'd have and his backroom staff, Terzic, would he come back? Probably not. He's a manager in his own right now. Is he going to return to the club? So yeah, I think the idea is good. The idea is lovely, but I just don't think the reality would play out as how we'd want it, and it would make me sad. I'd struggle to watch us struggle under Slaven Bilic, if that makes sense. It almost hit me twice. So bang, you're crap, but bang, there's a guy you love in charge of it all. Double blow. So
yeah, I mean, like Jay, he's gone on to manage a fair amount following his time at West Ham, and it hasn't been a particularly good time in any case. Like, he's been to quite a few teams. There hasn't been any even good spells, really. It's just been a disaster from start to finish. So again, once you've had somebody who's did you see the Troy Deeney interview?
No.
So he basically turned around and said that what do West Ham expect at the moment? You've signed a load of people who are used to losing. You've basically signed Southampton players who are used to losing. All of your transfers have been players who have come from clubs. Your goalkeeper that you signed against Leicester who shipped goals and lost loads of games. Basically, what you've surrounded yourself with is a load of people who are used to losing football matches. Slaven Bilic would add to that because he hasn't won many football matches for a very, very long time. So again, why I don't really agree with what Troy Deeney said, and I can't stand the man, and he hates West Ham anyway. I just think I've just seen nothing he's done since West Ham gives me any confidence that it would be a successful return. So other than obviously understanding West Ham and maybe trying to bring a bit of West Ham back to the club, but ultimately, mate, we've got Mark Noble here. We shouldn't need Slaven Bilic to do that. Mark Noble's already here. So again, I really don't see what he adds. I'm not actually happy with any of the managerial names that we've been mentioned with. I'm going to say now, I hope that there's someone completely different to all of the people that we've been linked with so far, because none of them give me any confidence and they all scream of a very typical West Ham appointment. So if Potter does go, I hope they've got different names on there that we're not aware of.
A potentially big if, though, so let's discuss that very quickly. Crystal Palace tomorrow, how are you feeling ahead of the game?
It's hard to be confident because I just feel like wrong team, wrong time, the type of football they play, the run that they're on, full of confidence. I just think it's a fixture that I would rather have not had at this particular time. But I'm always full of optimism with West Ham. Although this might tell you something, I'm coaching until about midday, and I could probably quite comfortably get to West Ham for kickoff time. But I can't say I have that much motivation at the moment. And I'm always someone who doesn't even care about the game. I just love surrounding myself with West Ham people.
Yeah, even
seeing
last
all the old
season, you
faces.
used to bust an arse to get up there. Even last season,
that's what I'm saying. So they've hospitality put out loads of massively reduced rates for this game as well. So could have gone in a bit of comfort and taken the boy and got a nice bit of pie and mash and everything else. But again, I'm just I don't know. We'll see. I'll probably message you from the stadium and say I'm here. And but I think the most that I can honestly give with my head at this stage is somehow nicking a draw against them. I think that's the best result we can hope for.
In regards to potentially sacking Graham Potter, what do you believe they'll do? So I'll tell you where I am. I think when he stays, draw he stays, and I think a small defeat, I think he stays, like a 1-0, maybe even a 2-0 defeat, I think he remains. But I think if it's 3 or 4-0, I think that's maybe when they pull the trigger. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that makes sense. But we just got to have. How long are you going to give it? I just feel like it's this time. I really do, for many reasons, and it's not just him. It's not just the results. It's just what he says. It's his character. It's everything. I've got no confidence that he turns it around whatsoever. So you're better off with sooner rather than later. But we know that they dragged their heels. Maybe the only thing that will change, depending on how many people rock up to this protest and how many people get behind it, could force their hand a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, what will be interesting tomorrow is, I don't know if he's attending the game, but what we do know, and it's out there in the public domain, is because of the Royal Mail, Daniel Kaczynski's in the country. Now, I would assume he doesn't attend that many West Ham games. He's a very busy man, fingers in lots of pies. West Ham isn't near the top of his priorities. I understand it. But when he's in the country, I would expect him to try and make an effort to go to the West Ham game, especially with it being a home game, right? So I think there's a small chance, or actually a good chance, that Kaczynski could be at the game tomorrow. And if he was to get driven in and he turns up and there's a protest and he's, hang on a minute, he might not even be aware of it. He might go, hang on a minute, what's this? So he might be aware of the protest, but the numbers are large. You might think, wow, this is serious. This is a lot of people. Then once he's in the ground, you'd imagine the only thing on his mind will be, excuse me, Baroness Brady and Mr. Sullivan, I need to have a conversation about those West Ham fans out there who are clearly very unhappy and are on the flags. It was you two. It was you two they're unhappy with. But I think what it might do is just put a little bit of pressure on Daniel Kaczynski. He might even teach Daniel Kaczynski something. He may not be aware of everything, the discontent and whatever. And I think if he goes to that game tomorrow, I think in terms of the protest, we've maybe got a little bit lucky planning the protest tomorrow for that game, because it could easily have been to start with a boycott and then do a different protest later down the line. So tomorrow's protest may not have been, let's congregate at the entrance to the car park where the directors drive through. So it could have been a different protest altogether, and he would have turned up and not seen anything. So actually, there's maybe a little bit of luck on our side tomorrow that he will then become aware of the frustrations of the fan base. And there, of course, Frankie, there is a possibility he's completely aware of it. He just doesn't really care. He's maybe got a similar attitude, which is, I'm not that arsed. What they're complaining about, we don't know. We've never really heard from him. He's not really someone that speaks in public too much. Anything else you'd like to add before we disappear?
No, just other than, like I say, if people do want change, then obviously, like you said, numbers are important. So people have to go and get behind it. I think even if it's someone like me, Gio, who isn't 100% convinced that the end goal is clear, if you want change, you've still got to go and get yourself involved. So, but also West Ham United need points. Yeah. So I think we can't get ourselves into a situation where it's doom and gloom, it's all negative and it's protest, and then we take it inside the ground and then whatever else. Yeah, you've got to keep pressure on. Yes, if the game's going the wrong way, if the game's gone, and I mean gone, and I think against Tottenham and that, Joe, one thing that I struggle with a little bit at the moment is Swansea the other night, for example. They look dead and buried, but they win the game. You never know in football. Goals can be scored long after 90 minutes and you can still win football matches. We give ourselves a much lower chance of that happening at West Ham. And I understand why, because when you come out of that stadium, them stop-go signs and getting home and getting your last trains and everything, it's an awful experience. Yeah. Awful. So many people just want to get out of there. And it isn't because it's tourists in there. It's genuine West Ham fans who just need to get home. And it's a nightmare.
I've got a friend that leaves 10 minutes. He leaves on the 80th minute every single game, regardless of the score. 1-0, 1-1, 2-0. We're winning 2-0. He still leaves because if he leaves 10 minutes early, gets home an hour and a half early.
Yeah.
So he misses 10 minutes of the game. But if he waited till the full-time whistle, he'd get home an hour and a half later. So for him, he's like, it's just not worth it. It's just... it's better for me to leave early and get home slightly, well, a lot earlier. So I missed 10 minutes of football, but I get home 90 minutes earlier. So for him, it's the payoff. I get what you're saying, though. I get your point. The thing is, the last time there was something like this, I think we played Southampton at home, and we beat them. And I think it was our first win in like 11 games or something. So actually, the game with the protest actually then transitioned into a win on the pitch as well, because I think it can have its positives, which is those going. I've got some friends going tomorrow who are then leaving immediately after the protest, either going to watch it somewhere else or they're just going home. They're not going to the game. But I've also got some friends that go into the game for the first time in a little while, so they're going to the protest and they're going to the match, and they wouldn't be going to the match if it wasn't for the protests. But actually, I think sometimes it can put some of those West Ham fans who have walked away back into the stadium. And when they're in the stadium, they're a little bit fired up. They've just been part of a protest. They're feeling, this is what I want to see. This is a bit of West Ham. We're trying to get West Ham out. And when you're in the ground, actually, it transitions into a good atmosphere because you're now a little bit louder, a little bit more riled up, and it can have its positives. I think in a weird way, I think the team can feed off it a little bit. If they come out and start quick, you might just find the noise continues inside the ground. Maybe I'm clutching at straws here.
No, you're not, Gio. But the communication used to be when that happened was support the team, not the regime, weren't it? And we all said that what we've got to do is we've got to protest. But when we get in there, we've got to get behind
you won't have seen this because it only went up just before we started recording. Hammer United have put up an open letter to Graham Potter and the players of West Ham United just to say this has got nothing to do with you. And we will be protesting, but then we will be getting in the ground and we will be supporting you as normal. And like you said, support the team, not the regime. And so that message is coming out. It's just in stages, isn't it? Before the protest tomorrow, it's sort of focus on getting the numbers, getting awareness. Now focus on, I guess, behaviours to some extent. So I think they have put that message out, Frankie. But look, you wouldn't have seen it. It was only just before we went live.
And that's right, but we can see all these messages. It's hard, It's hard to get a message in front of everyone. So I think regardless of whether you even believe that a protest should be happening tomorrow, there'll be plenty of people who think, who cares? What's all the protest? When we're in that ground tomorrow, we've got to show them what West Ham fans are all about. We've got to show them how loud we can be, how we can try and make the best of a bad situation, the best of a bad match day experience. And some people don't think it is a bad match day experience, but for me it is. And we've got to show them what we're actually all about as fans. So yeah, I hope we get behind them, Gio. I hope we make a lot of noise tomorrow. I hope, like you said, it sparks a bit of energy and a bit of life into the place. And let's hope West Ham can find a win.
Fingers crossed. Anyway, thank you very much for joining us. If you've enjoyed the podcast, please do drop a like on the video before you disappear by clicking the thumbs up button underneath your screen. Subscribe to Hammer's Chat, myself and Frankie. Well, we'll catch up with you next week.